Hi, Dane Cook.
How you doing, Dane?
Good. I hope I'm right on time here. I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off.
I was actually kind of debating on myself. I was like, is Dane Cook the type of guy that's going to be on time?
I'm usually early. I'm actually one of those weird early. I'm always like 10 minutes early for everything, always.
Really?
Yeah. And I think I'm early for this call, actually. I'm like a minute early. Yes. Continue to keep my reputation effervescent. I'm an early guy.
You know what? It's the little things in life that may put a smile on your face and keep you going, doesn't it?
Well, yes, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. That's perfect. What a great segue into my comedy tour.
I have done a little bit of radio. Now be funny, Dane Cook.
And go. I've always been, I'm not a good radio person in terms of when I would do the morning radio stuff and they wanted you to just come in and be like in shtick mode, like a Frank Caliendo is perfect for radio.
Yeah.
But I'm a storyteller, like I'm more of a long form storyteller. I'm funny off the cuff, but I'm not good with like setup bits in the morning. So I found a lot of those very arduous over the years because they'd be like, come on, man, what do you got? And I'd be like, I don't know, like I had a great dinner last night.
The one that I always like is when you have to get ready to interview someone, like a stand-up, and it's, what do you want to be set up with? Well, ask me about the motel last night. All right. Hey, Dane Cook, what about that motel last night? And it's like,
right.
This is the most awkward thing on the face of the earth.
Yeah, I like awkward. I'd rather be in an awkward moment and, yap out of it with you guys as opposed to setting up some wretched, benign thing out of nowhere. To me, was always the hardest. Performing, it's a breeze for me. That's always been my sweet spot.
Yeah.
Setups for stuff on like late night shows or what. Those were brutal. Those are not the easiest things to do, and to be natural in that.
Who was the hardest late night show to do?
Oh, man. Okay, well, for me, I came up loving Letterman. I mean, I watched Johnny Carson, but when Letterman started to really pick up steam, I really have always been a fan of comics with darkness in them.
Yes.
I love Jerry Lewis. I love Steve Martin. I've gotten to know these guys. They're dark guys. There's a whole nother corridor going on in there. And I've always been really comfortable around people like that. My dad was like that. So that's kind of where I always felt at home, comfortability. And David Letterman provided that. That was a show I would go on. I loved being prepared for him, but I was always a little intimidated because I knew the kind of guy that he was in the show he wanted to have.
Yeah.
So for me, it probably brought a lot of strong elements out of me in terms of like how I prepared and what I needed to deliver for that show.
Yeah.
But it was always a challenge, and I always felt like when I left there, seriously, I'd walk out that stage door, and it was like the most refreshing future from that moment on.
It's kind of like one of those things where it's like you do really well, it's going to be awesome from here on out. Everything is cool and fine and dandy, but there's that little moment of fear where Dave Letterman could be that crocodile or that alligator just lurking below the surface, and he could just tear you apart.
It was always that. And in fact, it was the first set I ever did on the show. Still very physical in my stand-up. Early stand-up, 1996. I'm like mostly youthful exuberance, and during my routine, I was holding the mic in my hand, and I had a mic stand that I'd put to my left, so towards Dave's desk, and my foot hit it.
Oh, no.
And it flew over, and then not only that, but the round bottom, it started to roll towards Dave's desk. I don't know how or what I did. I pulled like a little weird Spider-Man move, but I kind of went down on the ground, slinked, and so you see Dave in my shot.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm like, I'm dead. He's going to kill me. This was not a good look. I don't know if he was drinking his coffee. I don't know if he's smoking a cigar over there, but I just put the camera unknowingly, unrehearsed on the guy. But fortunately for me, the set went well, and he was very gracious and had some great things to say and had me back. So I re-entered that fear a few more times with him.
He is, and not to get like way off subject, because we're supposed to be talking about you, but just from...
No. Once again, better in the off the cuff.
Well, Dave Letterman, he's kind of an idol of mine because, not so much as the stand-up part, but as an interviewer, he is just amazing at what he does. And that show he does on Netflix is even better because and I'm totally breaking it right now, but he knows when to let the other person tell the story.
Sure.
And he's just... No, I'm glad we share that view of Dave Letterman. Dane Cook coming to Stephens Auditorium tonight. You can find ticket information on our website, kggo.com. Dane, here is your weird radio segue. Do you know what my weird? What my weird connection to you is?
Oh goodness. Okay.
So I have a 4-year-old.
All right.
And my wife, they come home, a couple weeks ago, and he brings this plane with him, right?
Okay, I know where we're going here.
And it has this voice, and I'm listening to it, and I'm like, I know that voice from somewhere. And I couldn't just place it, and then I looked it up. I'm like, oh, that's Dane Cook. It's like, wait, what? Oh yeah, he did that movie. So yeah, you're all over our house right now.
Oh man, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm flattered that your kid likes the Dusty Crop Hopper sound.
Dude, if I gotta listen to Dusty talk about racing anymore,
what? You don't want to hear me say, you got to soar for the skies.
No, I don't. Oh, but it really was one of those moments where you're like, I know that voice. Who the hell is that? And turns out it's Dane Cook.
That was such a fortuitous thing that, a very, very quick story. I went and saw an evening of Pixar music at the Hollywood Bowl, and I happened to go backstage where, for the first time, I was having a conversation with John Lasseter, who is, obviously the guy who did Pixar and all that stuff. He says to me, hey, you know what? We're firing the lead voice that we hired to play this plane in like a car spinoff. He's like, he's just not getting it done. Would you consider coming in and redoing the work? And truly, I was like, it was my dream goal, desire to voice anything with Disney or Pixar, anything like that. So
yeah.
that came to me completely through happenstance. And I was fortunate enough to, work with those guys over and the great animators over at Disney for a few years.
What's more fun, making like a live action movie or just doing the voice parts?
Oh, voiceover is way easier. You roll in, you're in your pajamas. You don't have, nobody's there to do makeup and try to make you look, better than, you do. And it's such a convenient way to be able to perform, still get a certain level of performance that we desire as entertainers. But I loved it. I mean, that's one of the greatest gigs. All my friends in animation are like, dude, this is the greatest, easiest gig. And I still get to, put out great content and make people laugh. So that's kind of like the holy grail of all things Hollywood, is to get a great voiceover.
There you go. Nothing wrong with that. In the world of stand-up, because you're touring right now and doing all that, how hard is it to be a stand-up nowadays?
Well, I think that for a lot of people coming up, it's arduous, and it's painful because not because of what I'm seeing some of these very funny young men and women doing, but they got a lot of people in their ear. They got a lot of, people on their team who are saying, can't say that, can't do that, should pull back on that, think you're being a little bit too abrasive, think you're being... And, of course, comedy at its best, at its finest, is, pushing away any kind of authority, any kind of rules, any kind of regulations, and it's flipping everything on its butt. And that's harder to find today because I think a lot of people are susceptible as they're in their formative years to listen to too many outside sources, and those people just want to make a few bucks off you as opposed to bring out the gold in you.
Have you had any, and you probably have, but has there been material that hasn't made it to the stage because, you know what, I just don't even want to bother with it?
I wouldn't say I've ever gone at it like that, but I do know that there's been material that, I'm throwing it out there on a random night in front of a, small club crowd, a workout night where you just kind of, talking off the cuff and trying to figure out what works, what's funny. And there are certain nights that, I'll say something that is irreverent or, just downright, bizarre, crude, whatever, whatever the mood you're in as a performer, sometimes that's the mood the crowd is going to suddenly be in, whether they like it or not. That being said, I know what I am at 30 years into stand-up comedy. I know what I want to ultimately bring out on the road on a tour like this. So, I don't step in it too often, but when I do, you'll hear about it.
What was the moment that you thought was going to kill that did not go well?
Wow, what an interesting question.
That's the Dave Letterman in me.
The thing that I thought was gonna kill. Wow. I would have to say I remember I did a movie with Steve Carell, called Dan in Real Life.
Yeah.
And I remember coming out of that experience and feeling like, wow, this is my best work. It's completely different from anything people have seen me do in stand-up. A vulnerable character, whereas my onstage, version is usually this very kind of alpha, heroic, guy at the helm. And I really remember after that being like, oh, I'm going to get every Matthew McConaughey role that he doesn't want. And that was just one of those things when it turned the corner. It was like, okay, yeah, good job. Get back on stage, monkey. Let's see what else you can do with the stand-up.
That's got to be the worst, right?
It was one of those disorienting moments, but it also helped because then it made me go, you're really in this industry. You don't know. You could hit the bullseye and no one sees it, and you could be so far out of left field and everybody loves it and embraces it. So you don't know.
That's awesome. Dane Cook coming to Stephens Auditorium later on tonight. Ticket information at our website, kggo.com. Sir, I'll let you get rolling, but hey, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you today, and I'm glad we didn't have to do shtick.
This is a no shtick zone, Adam. I appreciated that, and I hope that people come out and see one of the best nights of comedy they're going to get this year.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. We'll see you tonight.
You got it, man.
You, sir. We'll see you tonight.
You got it, man.